Friend and I were talking the other day about being married and about our wives. This friend of mine, him and his wife don't really get along. They're kind of mean to each other. And he had mentioned to me, it looks like you have a really good marriage and you have a really good life. And how does it happen like that? And there's a lot of answers to that. Number one, nobody's marriage is perfect. There's things that I do that aggravate Margaret, and there's things that Margaret does that aggravate me sometimes. But in general, we have a really good relationship. So everybody's different. So, this won't be one size fits all, but I'll tell you my personal opinion. I think the number one thing that we do that makes our marriage work, like for me, for instance, every day I wake up, I get dressed, I get ready for work, and then as soon as I'm squared away, I ask myself, what can I do today to make Margaret's day better? Notice I didn't say, what can I do today to make Margaret's life better? Because that's different. You start talking about lives, you start thinking about 401ks and all that shit. It becomes this big macro thing for the future. I don't know anything about the future. I'm talking about right now. What can I do today to make Margaret's day better? And that might be do the dishes for her. It might be to be thoughtful if she's, having a bad day, be sensitive to her, leave her alone if she needs to be. And Margaret's the same way. This morning, her and I had a conversation about who's going to mow the lawn. She wanted to do it because she knows I've only had one day off this week. And I wanted to do it because I know Margaret's been working around the house really hard because I've been working so much at my job. But at the end, the idea is, we want to do things for one another. And that's a discipline that doesn't come naturally. Margaret and I were at a barbecue not that long ago. And I was sitting there smoking a cigarette or talking with a friend. And she came up to me and said, Nate, can I get you a plate? She did that publicly. And later on, I found out that a couple of her friends had asked her about that. As if it was this wild thing that she would get her husband a plate of food after he's been working all day. More than anything, she did that for me because how can I make Nate's day better? It's showing thoughtfulness and respect. And I try to do the same thing for her. It didn't surprise me that, people were kind of roasting her a little bit for being that way. If two people are living their lives thinking, how can I make this person's day better? If I'm thinking that for her and she's thinking that for me, there's not a lot of room in the middle for being super selfish or being egotistical. I mean, it does still happen, but that's where the discipline comes in. And the final thing about it is that this is not something you can train another person to do. People don't really change in my experience. If you meet somebody at 35 years old like I did, that's who that person is. I did not train my wife to be that way. I asked her to marry me because she was that way. And she accepted my marriage proposal because she saw that I am that way. And the question is, if you're not that way, why not?